Hello and welcome back to KubeCon, CloudNativeCon, London. We're really packing the day today. Actually got some extra people coming on to help us unpack what's going on. We're continuing down the path of AI today because today seems to be AI day. And I could not really think of two gentlemen that I would love to have on. I want to say thank you. You had me at your dinner. I got to meet some of your end users the other night. Amit and Shahed, thank you for coming over here. You guys are the co-founders, CEO and CTO of Kubiya, and I got to really talk to some leaders in platform engineering, and it was really cool because trying to understand some of the experiences that they're having dealing with this thing called AI and all of the complications that it's bringing to them. Kind of help us break it down for around what's going on with AI and platform engineering and how it's changing things and why it's so important and what's Kubiya's perspective on that.
Sure, thanks for having us again, Rob, and great seeing you the other day. That was great conversations all around. I'll start with maybe the genesis. Had we had this same conversation 1 year ago, you would have been asking me why agentic workflows and why should we use it in the enterprise? Because it was still in the market education phase. I think that's solved. All of Sam Altman and Dario and all those folks have done their work. Now we're having a different type of conversations. How to deploy these agentic experiments, if you may, hackathons, into a production grade environment that the enterprise can consume, that you can go to your CISO and they can sign off on it without laughing out the room. That's really kind of where we're taking this.
Yeah, I mean, because we see it from a perspective that it's exactly what you say in the data. About 75% to 80% of organizations still haven't gotten to production yet with their AI, and they're spending a lot of money. And in fact, in this year, what we see is that budgets are only going to grow by 3 to 3.5% this year, which is down even over last year because of all the global uncertainty. But let's kind of take it a little bit deeper because you and I were talking and catching up on how there's just a lot of parts pieces. Like MCP has had a moment this week and has been talked about. I've already been quoted as saying it's a science project because there's so many other things that need to go around it. It doesn't solve the end-to-end problem, and you had a very interesting perspective on that.
Absolutely. I'll take into consideration when an organization wants to adopt agents. So we can throw the word agents to the air, but a lot of things are popping up to our heads. What exactly does it mean and what exactly does it require to get an end-to-end solution, a real world problem really solved using those agents, right? And the agents by themselves are nice. I mean, it could be very cool for an hackathon project, right? Maybe you can take some open source orchestration platform and try to get it to run some nice Python function for you. But in the real world, especially in organizations, a lot of questions are popping up around how am I going now to scale that? How am I going now to adapt it as part of the organizational processes? MCP, for example, which has, as you're saying, a lot of trend now, in the end, it's just a standard, okay? Just a standard that came in. It's not a solution. It wouldn't save the way that you're going to consume those agents or suddenly get agents into production. Something important about, for example, MCP, the word that comes near MCP is usually the word server. So MCP servers. And when we throw the word server to the air, what comes up is, SDLC, deployment, maintenance. How am I going to replicate it across environments? How am I going to scale it, where it's going to be hosted? All of those are part of what the ecosystem is now trying to face. And we take a different approach to how we're looking on it. Unlike how people are talking about agents, which are or still on the application layer, we prefer to look on agents like infrastructure, because they are not any different from the way you would manage your cloud, right? How do you replicate it now across environments? How are you going now to assign different permissions? How are you going to extend those agents with tools that are bounded to your VPC, for example? That's where things are getting very, very complicated. The aspect of how we see it is essentially you shouldn't manage it any different from how you will do infrastructure as code, right? So why not look on those agents as resources, right? And everything that is combined into this end-to-end workflow would be pure infrastructure resources that will give the application layer what it needs to really getting you into production.
And like you said, and I think this is one of the places that it's why I called it a science project, because I said, and you know, again, when we were in the data on Kubernetes thing, we polled the audience just, you know, in 600 people in there, you know, 10 and 15 were actually deploying production AI applications, and I mean by that Gen AI, and doing inference and or training, and it was even less on the training side, which I think is a good thing, because I think if you're training a model and trying to, unless you're Anthropic, OpenAI, Meta, or some of these big guys, I don't know why you're building your own model. Maybe you're fine tuning it and doing that stuff and putting guardrails. But I think to your point, like you said, a big piece of what I look at it is there's a governance that has to happen. And people are looking at platform engineering and saying, hey, how do you help me control AI? Is that what you're seeing as well? That
controllability is a major driver. And I think one of the things you hit on the head very nicely, it's one thing to do lightweight operations, update the CRM record for me, go query a database that's public or some frame of mind. But what happens when you actually have to take action in production? That may take your entire web front down, or website down. Now, that's a whole nother level of operation that requires a lot more governance, a lot more control, or predictability nonetheless in order to get there. And I think that's where we separate these type of, I'd say, operations from nice to have to some that requires predictability and controllability all the way through.
Yeah, because I mean, again, I'm trying to pull the signal out of the noise of MCP. MCP is a protocol. It's not like a thing. It's like a protocol that it's part of the solution. And do you see it that way? Is it like, hey, it's good because, like you said, it's a standard, but it's not everything, and this is why you need to be able to build around it.
Absolutely. So MCP allows basically those AI applications to consume tools and external data in a more standardized way.
Right.
But it's not that suddenly, because MCP is declared now as a protocol, it's going now to save the fact that those are servers on the other side that are running those tools. And essentially in an organization, those servers will need credentials to your tools, they need predictability, like Amit was saying, and essentially someone will need to manage them and watch over them. And because, like I said, server, then your DevOps team, your platform engineering team will need to manage those. They will crash. It's not that the AI suddenly can intelligently know how to consume those tools. And I think that it's a good start to build the ecosystem around, but as you were saying, it's just one piece.
Right.
And what's going on behind the scenes in order to get it really to do meaningful stuff, solve real world problems, especially in, let's say, air-gapped environments, things are getting very, very tight there.
Well, that's where I was going to go, because that was the interesting conversation I had with said customer at your event, was that the fact that they had the requirement for being able to do stuff in an air-gapped environment, and we know that, you know, sovereign data sovereignty. We also know that 85% of data that organizations want to use in AI is actually on-prem. And maybe it's not necessarily air-gapped, but they don't want it leaking, and they're very conscious of that. Are you seeing that being a push for you guys, and where you've actually taken your product in that direction?
It goes without saying, financial services, Automotive, there's a lot of those frameworks of customers who are talking to us about this. Whether we want to or not, that's where the customers are taking us, and of course, a hybrid infrastructure or a hybrid SaaS, where the control plane lives on on-prem and then they could have it on their side. That's also a nice little in-between for the SMEs, SMBs that talk to us that don't have the same regulations.
Yeah, we were actually talking about that with some of the hyperscalers earlier this week about the fact that on-prem is in vogue again, and so it was very amusing because I was like, okay, we're going to be talking on-prem, and I know their solutions very well. Are you seeing, and again, there's all of them have some ability to go on-prem. Are you seeing that also it's the fact that it's not only on-prem versus a cloud, it's on-prem versus multi-clouds. Are you seeing a lot of that with your organizations? Not necessarily stretching AI across there, but they're trying to get control and do it in a standardized way, doing their platform engineering in a standardized way across those.
Yeah, so what really happens is that as part of this new kind of standard, right? Part of the questions that pops up is they need to expose now their kind of superpowers to those AI applications. So they have the protocol and the capability of doing so, but they are very afraid of, let's say, exposing the server now, so Claude or Cursor can now consume it, but you need now to sacrifice the exposure to the internet, right? Because those apps are essentially on the cloud. And what really happens is that in the real world, they don't want those servers exposed in such a way. They would want them to maybe talk with their inner tools which are network bounded, right? So multi-cloud, multi-environment, like you're saying, I could have 1,000 Kubernetes clusters, and each of those clusters has different resources that are bounded to the network of this cluster. And then what? I'm going now to expose all of those capabilities to the outside world just so an AI can call it, but now also humans can get into the traction. That's part of what we're hearing, the security concerns about that, which is a significant part, but also the fact that they want to run without public models. They want to take leverage of, let's say, a fine-tuned Llama, right, or even function calling model, open source, that they want to host on their infrastructure because they don't want to expose all of that, the conversation history and the context with their tools to the outside world or those public models. So a lot of the concerns that we're hearing are exactly about this topic. It goes through security, but it varies to model deployment and management of those tools and aspects.
Oh, absolutely. So last question here, the time's flying by.
Sure.
So let me ask you, what you're excited about now, why Kubiya now, why Kubiya when we get together maybe in Amsterdam in a year and we're getting an update from you guys. Help me understand that.
We've seen a lot of enterprise adoption strictly because a lot of people are looking for people who've done that, who've deployed enterprise AI applications in production with all the guardrails that enterprises want. I think there's a lot of misnomer, a lot of noise out there, a lot of frameworks out there claiming to be AI native and able to do so, but when you dig under the hood, you're seeing where all of these things fall between the cracks, and it's really the enterprise use cases, the hardening, not exposing new attack surfaces, non-human identities, giving an agent God mode to go mock in your infrastructure. Yeah. These are the hard questions and concerns, rightfully so, that people are trying to solve for, and by blood, sweat, and tears, we've had to go through this for the last 3 years, internally for ourselves, for pre-gated use cases, and now we've opened up this platform, really for others to consume and use as a usage base, which really is come build on top of us, not just consume end user use cases with us, which has been our claim to fame up until now, but also come build on top of us. Even ISVs can build on top of us, their enterprise-ready applications tomorrow.
That's great. I think we'll leave it there, but I'm looking forward to the update when we get to either Atlanta or in Amsterdam. I think it's great. You guys, again, it was, I thought some of the folks that you had there and the customers were asking all the right questions, and I loved the answers. So, thank you for coming on board, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
And thank you for watching this episode of KubeCon, CloudNativeCon. London 2025. I can't believe it's already 2025 and we're cruising through day 2. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.